As the capital city of Scotland, Edinburgh has its fair share of deep, interesting, and sometimes dark history. This history has manifested itself into tales passed down through generations. Such tales include the story of Irish serial killers Burke and Hare, Robert Johnston, the man who holds the world record for the longest hanging, which lasted over 8 hours, Greyfriars Bobby, the most loyal dog in the world, and Mary King's Close, where the citizens of Edinburgh were walled off and left to die of the plague. However, some of these tales may be telling us more than what actually happened. In Christmas 1644, a ship from Europe brought the plague via the port of Leith to Edinburgh. The plague was spread by fleas carried on black rats, and over a period of only 18 months, it killed a vast amount of the country's population, until finally it was decided that any closes, including Mary King's Close, that were infected with the plague were to be walled off and its citizens left to starve. What do you know about Mary King's Close?
It was a close where it was full of people who were suffering from the plague, and they walled it up with them all still inside. And I think they were all alive, and they just walled up the close at either end so they couldn't escape. And they all starved to death, and there was just, when they opened up, there was just piles and piles of bodies. Very unpleasant.
It's a close on the Royal Mile that was boarded off because of the plague many years ago, and I think it was a sort of way to quarantine, to keep the illness contained. So lots of the bodies belonging to the victims of the plague are still there now.
However, despite these enduring myths, some people would argue that this was not in fact what happened at Mary King's Close. It's believed that there was actually a long tradition of organised quarantine among plague victims, and that over many previous outbreaks they would enclose themselves in their homes and, to show their plight, would hang a small white flag from the window. Anyone showing these white flags would receive daily visits from plague doctors who would drain pus-filled lymph nodes, and they would also have bread, ale, coal, and even wine delivered to them.
I think that was true. I think it maybe is exaggerated. I don't know. I think it's true, but I don't know exactly what details of it are true.
Another well-known, extremely loved story about Edinburgh is the tale of Greyfriars Bobby. Greyfriars Bobby was a Skye Terrier who spent 14 years guarding the grave of his master John Grey until he himself died on 14th of January 1872. In 1867, it was argued that a dog without an owner should be destroyed, and to prevent this, the Lord Provost of Edinburgh, Sir William Chambers, who was also a director of the Scottish Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, paid for Bobby's licence, making him the responsibility of the City Council.
So, how much do you know about the story of Greyfriars Bobby?
Well, I'm Edinburgh since yesterday, and today I read tourist guidebook about the Royal Mile, and Bobby was one part of the Royal Mile. So that's how I learned about it. It's about a dog, about a terrier dog, whose master died, and he went for 14 years, I guess. So he was sitting on his graveyard every day for these 14 years. He just went away for 1 hour to get food and water and everything, and then he came back.
It's a story about a little dog who loved his master a lot, and then his master died, and he went to his grave and sat next to it every single day, and he got given the keys to the city of Edinburgh, I think.
I don't know very much about the story. I could tell about Greyfriars Bobby is that the dog stood by his master's grave from when his master died until the dog died. That's about all I know.
In the book Greyfriars Bobby, the most faithful dog in the world, the author Jan Bonderson gives the argument that in 19th century Europe, over 60 stray dogs would wander into cemeteries and, after being confused for a deceased person's pet, would be fed by the locals to the point where they would make the cemetery their home. In Bobby's case, he was apparently a stray that used to be seen around Heriot's Hospital. However, he soon became a nuisance, and the hospital gardener threw him into the graveyard. Bonderson also believes that in May or June 1867, the original Bobby died and was replaced by a younger dog. Pictures would show a clear difference between the two animals, with the first one being an old, tired-looking mongrel, and the second being a lively, youthful Skye Terrier that would run about and fight other dogs. This also explained the unnatural length of Bobby's life, which lasted 18 years, even though Skye Terriers only live for about 10 to 12 years.
Do you believe the story is true or not?
Actually, yes, I have no reason not to believe that. And I heard that very similar story is known in Japan, in Hachiko. It's also about a dog who was sitting years and years in the train station waiting for his master, so maybe it's true. I believe it's true.
I think it could be. I heard somewhere that it might have been. I think I read it somewhere. But I never really believed it was 100% factual, like maybe exaggerated through time, but it's still a nice story.
And do you believe the story could be true?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I do believe it could be true. Yeah, I think it'd be quite a nice thing to do. It's a loyal dog that stood by his master's grave, isn't it? So, yeah. Okay.
Despite what could possibly be the true fact behind a much-loved piece of fiction, residents of Edinburgh and tourists continue to believe these stories are true, and it's possible that they may well still be, given how old the tales are and how much history is behind them. When we asked some university students if they knew of any other myths that could be purely fictional, they struggled to think of any. But either way, whether Edinburgh gives us genuine historic stories or tall tales exaggerated for our amusement, it's still enough to get us hooked and interested, and it brings people from all over the world just to see and hear it for themselves, making Edinburgh one of the world's greatest sights.